Learning all the different positions of a major scale is a difficult but necessary task for bass players. So in this video, I'm going to teach you what the positions are and how you can memorize them effectively. How's it going, guys? Hugh Richardson from OnlineBassGuitar.com here. On my channel, I do gear reviews and bass lessons just like this one. So if you're new here and you want to be a better bass player, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. So in this lesson, we're going to be looking at something that's often called the 7-position scale system. Now, I do want to clarify exactly what's meant by the term scale position, but before I do that, it's really important that you understand where the 7 scale position system comes from, and then we can see what positions are and how they relate to the neck. Inside a major scale like C major, there are 7 notes. So we've got C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and the idea behind the 7-position system is that each one of these notes inside the scale has its own scale position. So the first thing that I want you to do is to take the lowest string of your bass. In my case, it's a low E, and I want you to find all the notes of the C major scale just on that one string. Just because the scale starts at C, it doesn't mean that you have to start at C. We just want any one of those notes inside the scale. So I've got a low open E, that's inside the C major scale, so I'm going to start from E, and I'm going to go E, F is inside, G, A, B, C, D, E. I'm back there. Of course, I can keep going up if I want. F, G, A, B, and then I've got C at the top. Now, to figure out my scale positions, what I'm going to do is cycle through the C major scale collection of notes, starting from each one of these notes on the E string that I've just found. But to get my scale positions, rather than play all up one string or move around the neck a lot, I'm going to restrict myself to staying in one specific area of the neck. This is going to mean crossing across a lot of different strings, but after I play through the major scale in each of these areas, if I take a look back and look at the sort of territory on the neck that my hand marks out, this is what we would refer to as a position. So in other words, a scale position is a version of a certain scale that lives within a certain area or territory of the neck. And to figure out all these positions, we're going to start from each of the scale notes on the E string, and then within about a 3 or 4 fret span away from that starting note, we're going to try and get as far up the scale as we can. So we're going to go through multiple octaves if we have to. So we'll start from E. We're going to go open E, F, G, and then open A, B, C, open D, E, F, open G, A. You could put the B on top as well if you want, if you've got particularly big hands. So once you play this with a bit more speed, you get Now, what you'll notice with a lot of these scale positions is that so many of them overlap with inside the 7-position system. A case in point is the next position. So from F, here we go F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Now, you could play this position a different way by stretching from F, G to the fretted A here and keep going up all the way. That way you can reach the high C. But what you've got to be careful of is this is actually quite a nasty stretch. So if your hands aren't that big or you don't quite have the technique to make the stretch work, you could give yourself a bit of an injury. This isn't such a problem if you're on an instrument like guitar or mandolin perhaps, because you've got smaller frets, or if you've just got bigger hands, then you'll be fine. But this is something you want to be mindful of. But even if you do choose to make the stretch to the A from the F, you'll see that the next position for G, again, it's very similar. There's quite a lot of overlap. Of course, you could stretch further forward, but as you can see, that's a massive stretch and it gets quite painful. Because of these big stretches, what a lot of bass players like to do is, when they're playing in all these positions, is restrict themselves to stretching no further than 1 fret at a time. This is one of the places that the idea of the 1 finger per fret approach comes from. If you've been watching this channel for any length of time, you'll know that I think 1 finger per fret is much more of an approach than a golden rule. Sometimes it's just not practical. If we look at the position that starts from A, if I restrict myself to not spreading out any more than 1 finger per fret, I get this. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, which is quite nice. And then I do have to move my hand back a little bit to get B, C, and D like that. But on the whole, it's actually quite a comfortable position. There's not any big stretches, there's nothing that's painful, and it means that my technique on my left hand can actually remain quite fluid, which is great. As you go further through these positions and get further up the neck, I find that this idea of 1 finger per fret gets much more useful. With the higher positions here, you can see that because the frets are smaller, there isn't really as much need for me to stretch. A downside is that you do have to move a little bit more. So you can see when I get to D, I start with my 1 finger per fret box across the 10th to 13th frets here like this. And then as I play up, because I can't stretch up to the B there, that will be moving outside my box. What I do instead is I move my whole box back 1 fret and play the 9th, 10th and 12th fret of the D and G strings to get the rest of my notes. Once you get to the really high end of the neck, so kind of beyond the 12th fret, all of your scale positions actually reset. So that's to say that they're the same as the ones we played an octave lower. If you really look at it, this position here that we started with is actually exactly the same as the one here. The only difference is that I'm fretting the notes that were previously open strings. But of course, now that we're beyond the 12th fret and the frets become much smaller still, we could look at ditching this 1 finger per fret approach because it's actually more comfortable for us to make bigger stretches up there. So if you wanted to fan out, you could actually get some different scale shapes and different variations that you couldn't really play down here. So from F, rather than having to fit inside this shape, what I could do now is stretch out, make major third stretches across 1 string. So I've got 4 fingers spanning 5 frets here and play the shape like this. This is something people can find quite difficult because it's obviously a very strong test of how well you know the neck and how well you know your scales. And one thing that I find really helps to bridge the gap between someone who's just learnt a 1 octave scale to someone who can fluently play through an entire scale position or several is knowing the same scale in 3 different ways. So what I call behind the root, on top of the root and in front of the root. Knowing these 3 different versions of a scale can help unlock a lot more of the neck and stitch all these scale positions together. And if this is a concept that's new to you and you haven't heard about it, make sure you check out the lesson that I've done on those 3 scale shapes by clicking up on the YouTube card here. It's a really great lesson. It'll take you through a lot of good stuff. But now you're familiar with the 7 position system, the challenge that you've got is actually learning all these scale positions and practicing them. So to help you on your way, I've left a link in the description where you can download tab of each one of these 7 scale positions in C major. Head down there, check it out. It's completely free. It's a very useful PDF. Of course, if you found this lesson useful, I'd really appreciate your thumbs up and comments down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I'll see you in another lesson real soon. Take care.